Greetings. Welcome to ITR Live. I'm your host, Chris Hagan. We are back here in Studio 130 for another fun-filled, action-packed episode of the gold standard in Iowa conservative entertainment. I nailed it that time, John.
That's right, yeah.
All right, good. All right, how are you doing today, John?
I'm doing fine.
Good. John is relaxed, refreshed, ready to go. You ventured into the liberal north over the long weekend.
Yeah.
How was it?
It was nice, yeah.
Oh, good. Besides the politics, it was nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And besides the politics and mosquitoes, it was nice.
Yeah, I did see that Governor Walz is sending some sort of aid or help down to the folks in Greenfield.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that's nice.
so I didn't read the whole article, but yes, we appreciate that. We're a little hard on Governor Walz sometimes.
Yeah.
We're a lot hard on him, but lending a hand, so we appreciate that. And again, our thoughts to the folks, not just in Greenfield, although that's the one that garnered the most attention and the most destruction, but folks across Iowa that are dealing with fallout from storms, big and small, and that's tough. But it's also at the same time encouraging to see Iowans coming together and chipping in and helping one another out. So very good. So this is, I don't know if I'll have time to come back around to it before primary election day coming up next week, John, but I thought it would probably be appropriate for us to spend a little time talking about Republican primaries. Mm-hmm. So you may not live in an area with a contested primary, but it is coming up a week from yesterday. Today's Wednesday when we're recording this, so we're 6 days out from primary election day in Iowa. It seems like we've had some pretty high-profile stuff in recent cycles, but there's not as much this time. And part of that is we don't have very many statewide races on the ballot. So looking forward to the fall, you're gonna vote for president, but then there's no other statewide races. There's no Senate race. And we'll go straight down to congressional races. And so before we go through on a few of those that are interesting, though, it was primary runoff night in Texas last night. Did you see any of this?
I did not till you talked about it this
morning.
Well,
that's a good thing we had a pre-production meeting this morning, John, so that you can actually answer. But so they had their primaries, I think, back in March, and then this was the runoff. And the reason that this is kind of interesting is much like our primaries 2 years ago, school choice took center stage in their primaries last night.
Yes.
And much like happened in Iowa 2 years ago, Governor Abbott in Texas got personally involved in helping to organize and see primary opponents win against advocates or opponents of school choice. So, and I, without following Texas politics too closely, Governor Abbott was sort of claiming victory on that last night.
Yes,
and the speaker almost lost, the Speaker of the House in Texas. So it's not just an Iowa thing, right, where school choice is becoming an overarching issue in Republican primary politics.
Yeah.
So are there any other states, and I hate to spring this question on you, that this dynamic is happening besides
There's a lot of
Texas?
states. I think Georgia's one. And
I did see something on that.
I know there's at least a dozen states where this is going on, but Governor Reynolds really set a precedent of what she did, and other, especially Republican governors, are starting to follow her lead on basically getting involved in their party's primaries if they're in favor of advancing these school choice policies. And, certainly I think Governor Abbott was probably the most energetic, just like Governor Reynolds, in doing this.
Yeah. Well,
but definitely we are seeing probably some of the strongest legislative activity in terms of school choice in recent years over the last.
Well, according to the Des Moines Register, that's completely inappropriate for a governor to get involved in all of this, despite the fact that they're
just like it's inappropriate for Attorney General Byrd to talk about the Trump trial, but it's okay for all these liberals to grandstand
Well, that's because they're right,
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Conservatives are wrong, John. That's
right.
You missed that part. No, it's the double standard is remarkable on that. So presumably some expansive statewide school choice program will be coming to Texas, and I think that's significant.
Yeah.
Look, Iowa did it first, but this will be the first really large state to do it.
Yes,
and it is a little different in that. And so anytime you see a state take this big leap on that, the world is watching. And so they'll not only watching to see whether they end up getting this done, but how will they do it and how well will it work? And I know Texas politics is likely dominated by, Dallas, Fort Worth and Austin and San Antonio and Houston, but it is still a lot of Texas is rural.
Yes. Yep.
And that was always the concern in Iowa is how will that work in rural areas. And so, maybe if nothing else, we can learn something from one another on that. Good. I do want to circle back to some of the races in Iowa and just to click through some of them. So the only congressional primary that I think that got much attention at all was Marionette Miller Meeks, right? And she had a primary, but there was some talk about that early on, but has that come into focus? I know you at one point lived in that area, and is there much going on in that campaign, or is that one kind of fizzled out?
I think it's sort of fizzling out. I have not heard much that it's being strongly contested, and so I just don't know. I thought it was going to be a stronger challenge when it.
Well, and we saw that Speaker Johnson came and did an event for Congresswoman Miller Meeks a month or two ago, and that was a pretty strong indication. And it goes to show you that it's really difficult to primary an incumbent.
Yes.
There's just the money. If nothing else, that incumbents have a lot of built-in advantages. First and foremost, the dollars. And our members of Congress in Iowa, the 4 Republican incumbents, have all proven themselves to be very good fundraisers.
Yes. Yep.
And to their credit. So I guess I'm with you. I haven't heard a lot about that race lately, and I hate to be dismissive of it, but usually if that one's, sometimes you can sneak up and catch someone sleeping, but I just haven't heard a lot about it.
Yeah.
I think at the legislative level, John, there's a lot of open seat primaries. There's 3 or 4 that I guess I've sort of had my eye on that I want to go through, but the 2 on the Senate side and 2 on the House side. The only incumbent with I think a really significant primary challenge that we've tracked is up in north central Iowa with Senator Waylon Brown, and is being challenged by somebody. And I'm not quite sure what the whole deal is there, other than perhaps the pipeline issue, because Senator Brown's been a consistent conservative and a champion on a whole host of policies,
absolutely.
Specifically ITR policies.
Yeah.
So that one is a little hard to decipher apart from perhaps the pipeline issue. But I know that one has gotten a lot of attention. I'm always going to probably bet on the incumbent unless there's really good reason not to. And so I would in this case, but we'll see. And then the other Senate race, and I don't know if you and I have even talked about this one much, but is the seat that's currently held by Senator Jeff Edler. And it comes from Marshalltown down even into northern Polk County, predominantly a rural seat, but comes pretty close to the Des Moines metro area. And that is, I can't remember the first names, but it's Gannon Hendrick and Warmy is the woman's name, and I apologize for blanking out on that. But that is been two really good candidates, I think, is what makes that interesting, because it's an open seat. But Hendrick being a longtime Capitol staffer and who kind of knows the way around, and Warmy, who is a really impressive resume. I don't know have you looked at this one at all?
I have not. No.
So I'll be really curious to see. It's Kara. I'm sorry, Kara Warmy. Anyway, but just a really impressive in her long time in the area for both of them. So watching that one. On the House side, there's a lot more, obviously, just because there's more races. But one is the Joel Fry open seat down around Osceola. And this is one that's so one of the two candidates apparently is motivated by the AEA bill and has the support of teachers unions and others, I believe. And so that, I believe, has even garnered some of the governor's interest in that one. But the reason that's interesting to me, John, and we have talked about this, and I want to get your take on this, is I believe the longer that Iowa remains a reliably red state with big Republican majorities, you are going to see folks left of center, whether candidates or interest groups, trying to engage in the process on the Republican side. Mm-hmm. And I think we've seen some of that in other states.
Yeah.
But I mean, talk about that a little bit, because you do a lot of look around the country, and that impact of the left trying to play in the Republican side.
Well, I think that's a good point, and we see that definitely in other states, and even in Minnesota. I saw this firsthand, where you see, for example, in this case, the teachers union or different liberal policy groups that will try to influence Republican legislators, and so you look at red states, for example, Wyoming, where you have solid Republicans, and you see factions develop within the Republican caucus between conservatives and more liberals, and so. And one example is even what we were talking about earlier, Texas. Texas predominantly, it's pretty much a red state, but also getting more purplish in some ways. But also there is a divide within Republicans in Texas, I think, in some regard, between liberal Republicans. And so definitely...
Texas for a long time, the speaker has been elected primarily because of the support of the Democrats.
Yes,
going and finding a very moderate Republican, and so they're that's how they get involved.
And I want to say, I think Oklahoma has the Republican leader in the Senate. I could be wrong. I think tends to be more liberal than their speaker, and so there's definitely situations where political power can find interesting. Strange, what is that slogan? Strange bedfellows.
Right, politics. That's right.
And so you can find situations just like in this case, education, finding allies within the Republicans that they'll team up with someone who opposes reform and trying to reform a giant bureaucracy like the AEA.
I think it's something that we need to keep our eye on, and we sort of know the lay of the land here in primary 2024, but this is going to keep coming.
Yeah.
And I'm encouraging conservatives to be aware, to my friends inside the Capitol and out, and people across Iowa, is that the left is going to try and play on the Democrat or on the Republican side. And we need to be very careful of that. And it's going to probably require getting involved in some ways that maybe we haven't in the past.
Yeah.
And so we'll watch that one. I guess I'm hopeful down there, but.
And it's interesting. You and I were talking the other day, and I was listening to a retirement speech of a Minnesota lawmaker, Republican, who was in a sense lamenting the divisive nature of politics and blaming conservatives within his own party. And so there's a lot of times where a lot of moderate Republicans will blame their own conservatives within their own party for the divisive nature, which I completely disagree with. And I've seen that even here in Iowa. For example, when I first moved to Iowa, there was a lot of supporters of former Congressman Jim Leach that were very upset with, at that time, it was a lot of Tea Party Republicans, and they were just upset with Tea Party Republicans, and they did not like them at all. And so and you see this with, for example, the I'm drawing a blank now, the moderate Republican former governor in Maryland, who's now a Senate candidate, Hogan, who was, basically you have to, these type of Republicans say, well, you have to be a centrist, and so I think there's some Republicans that are arguing that you have to sort of, be this middle ground in order to govern effectively.
Well, it will come as no surprise to you, John, that I completely reject that premise.
Yeah.
What do you believe? And are you willing to fight for what you believe? But that's the determination. If you hold if your worldview drives you to a set of principles that may not be the same as base Republican principles, fine. We may disagree, but that's where you've landed, and you're willing to fight those set of principles. We can now have an honest conversation.
Yeah.
But if you spend a political career pretending that you have a certain set of principles, and then on your way out the door, lament how difficult it was for you to deal with that. You never believed it in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
That means you spent a political career wanting to be somebody instead of doing something.
Yeah. You're absolutely right.
And that's the problem. And I see it far too often that folks that claim the middle or some sort of centrism they just prefer safe ground.
That's right.
Now, there are some folks, and here, I'll to play devil's advocate, sometimes the base conservative position is not politically as popular. I think a lot of times it is. We just don't sell it very well.
Yeah.
But and you're choosing your battles. I absolutely understand that. You're going to pick your battles. I don't think that's what we're talking about here. If you think, well, we shouldn't go this far right now on this issue, we should take some ground and come back later for more. I can accept that. We can then have an honest disagreement about the correct path forward. But you never see a progressive Democrat retire and then say, oh, these people are crazy.
That's right.
Because they believe it.
They do, absolutely.
They've all drank the Kool-Aid on the left.
Yeah.
And it is, I guess my takeaway is, if you don't believe it, get out of the way and let the people that do lead.
Yeah.
Because we are fighting for the future of this country.
That's right.
And I personally don't have time for the folks that just want a title or want to make sure they get invited to all the right cocktail parties.
That's right. Yeah.
So, okay. Well, very good. Wow. That was good. We kind of covered it on primaries. There's a few others, I think, here in central Iowa that are kind of interesting to me. And I know that gets pretty narrow here, but one more legislative primary is Norwalk and Winterset, which is former state representative Garrett Gobble, who had been elected in Ankeny, running against Samantha Fett. I think both those candidates run a pretty active campaign, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I do not have a sense of what direction that will go. The Dallas County Attorney, that's getting kind of exciting, and that's one that we'll be voting for.
Yeah.
And what makes these hard, I think across the board, especially once you get below the legislative level, is it going to be really low turnout? Because the only reason that you and I, other than we just like to go vote, John, is because that race, that's the only primary. Yours, I guess you'd have the David Young primary. I don't know that that's been contested really.
No.
But it's if there's no reason to go out and vote, besides maybe a county office, most people don't show up and vote.
No,
so that's going to be low single digits in turnout.
Yep.
Who knows what will happen? But it is former Iowa Secretary of State Matt Schultz is running in that race.
Yeah.
So I think name ID alone probably gives him a little bit of a leg up on that now. Another interesting one, John, that I don't even know that you and I have talked about in pre-production is the Polk County Supervisor race.
Oh, no, we haven't.
In Ankeny. So that is Steve Van Ort is a longtime incumbent Republican Polk County Supervisor, is being primaried by the current mayor of Ankeny, Mark Holm. And that has seen a lot of action. I think there's money being spent up there. I was up there over the weekend, and there's a lot of signs up. So that's an interesting one down ballot.
Yeah.
To watch there as well. So anyway, we'll have plenty more to say about that after all these, but that's sort of what we're watching, right, John?
Yeah.
Okay.
It'll be interesting.
Okay. With the time that we have remaining, I want to start a conversation that I think we're going to have many times over the next few months leading up to November in the election. And that is what seems like the Democrats have finally landed on a theme that they want to focus on as their response to inflation. So we know that inflation is one of, if not the things that's top of mind for voters right now. And I saw it in multiple different news articles, social media posts over the last day or two, which is coming back to this idea of corporate greed, and that is what is driving consumer prices. I think it's absurd. We'll just start off there.
Yeah.
And I can understand why they're doing it, because they caused inflation. Most people should probably, recognize that. And and the electorate is becoming more populist, and they need an answer to that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to start with your take on this, John. I'm guessing you're not buying the whole corporate greed thing. And even if it is corporate greed, whatever that means, well, then what?
Yeah.
Right?
Well, this is basically their typical play of their political playbook of class warfare. And so it's the best evil person for Democrats is corporations, the
right.
CEO. And so basically they're saying the reason why the consumer is paying higher prices is the CEO is instead of lowering prices, taking their profits and putting them into their own pockets and into the pockets of their board members, and therefore charging consumers higher prices. And what it's doing is, one, it's trying to shift the blame from their own policies, and even the president dismissed rising food prices. He denied it, and his own administration has basically said, well, people just don't understand how well the economy is doing. And the other thing is Biden says, well, their paychecks are increasing, and that may be true. There may be wages may be increasing, but they're not keeping up with inflation. So people may be having, just like Social Security might have increased for people, but in a sense, the take-home pay is actually worse because inflation eats those wages. And so what's happening here is that it's not corporate greed, it's inflation. And so that's what this is he's just trying to just like, his phony immigration bill, trying to cover and pass the blame for something.
Yeah, I almost want to dismiss all of this as just electioneering and not even engage in it as serious policy, because I'm not sure that it is. I'm not sure that any of this is serious policy. It's a deflection, because they know it. Look, and I'm reading from a New York Times article, which is about sort of swing state Democrats on the ballot. Sherrod Brown of Ohio, Bob Casey, Pennsylvania, Tammy Baldwin, Wisconsin, Jackie Rosen in Nevada, John Tester in Montana. Those senators are all at risk of losing their seat in this environment, because those are all, well, not all, but all states that could go red this fall. And so they need a message, because they all voted for the nonsense that has brought about inflation. So it is all campaign, but what's underlying this is they simply don't believe in the free market.
No.
If we're going to take this at face value, which I guess for this we can, they don't believe in the economic freedom of it. They don't believe in consumer choice. A business is going to charge a price for their product that they believe they can get people to pay for, right? They don't set it on, well, let's charge $20 for this instead of $10 because I want to make more money. Well, yes, they're going to do that, but there's a limit to that. They're
Yeah.
always going to charge as much as they think they can. It's supply and demand. And they don't believe they believe in things like price controls. They believe in having the strong arm of the government control our economy. And they really don't acknowledge all of the negative implications of that.
Yeah.
Which one is going to be inflation. I mean, look at what's happening to small businesses in California based on minimum wage. They're controlling the wage end of it, and then there's all these negative consequences of it. And so I think they probably deep down they acknowledge that, but they're still going to play this because clearly people are buying this. I think, or at least people on their side are buying it. But, and here's another, and we did not talk about this, John, and here's where I get it. I saw I don't know if it was a tweet or a Facebook post by Robert Reich about Target.
Yeah.
Taking after Target. And so here you've got liberals going after Target. I mean, I don't know, maybe they didn't sell enough Pride merchandise at Target to get the, the special dispensation from the left. But this big business has become the party of the Democrats. It used to be that it was Republicans that was the party of business. It has flipped.
Yeah.
I mean, these corporate boards and the marketing departments and all that is run by Democrats, right? And Target, for example. Yep. And now you see Democrats wanting to turn and attack their own on this. Is that just me? Am I the only one that sees it this way?
No, it definitely, corporate America is more aligned with both from a social and economic perspective. I mean, they're woke and they're embracing the liberal economic agenda.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm in the Target boardroom right now, I think, well, did we not bend the knee enough to the liberal left, and now you're coming back at us again for being greedy?
Yeah.
So it's
well, the other thing too is that they better watch out, because I think what's going to happen if Biden gets back in and if he gets a Congress, a Democrat Congress, I think you'll see the end of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. I think you'll see a corporate tax increase, and that will be devastating. But the other scary thing, this was over Memorial Day weekend, and this was on Fox Business, but they were giving an interview with Jared Bernstein, who's Biden's chief economic advisor, and basically he was defending modern monetary theory, which basically says that printing money doesn't matter because deficits don't matter. Government can just print money, and he basically defends this. He says the U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can just print our own money. And I'm not going to read anything else because he tries to defend that. It doesn't even make sense. But that's scary. That whether or not he really believes this or not, I hope he doesn't really believe that. But this is scary. That these people just literally are following a policy thinking that we can just continue to spend and spend and spend, and there won't be any consequences because we can just simply turn on the printing presses.
There are consequences, but those consequences fall much more on the backs of people on the lower end of the wage spectrum.
Yeah.
People with means and resources, which are the primary constituency of the Democrat Party, can handle that.
Yeah.
They've got cash. They've got assets. They can grow through that.
Yeah.
It's the folks at the bottom that Democrats, by and large, as a party, have started to completely forget about.
That's right.
And so maybe it doesn't matter.
And this is why when the former President Trump held that rally in the Bronx, why you had non-traditional Democratic voters, Hispanic and African-American voters supporting the former president because of a lot of them they were interviewing because of this inflation.
It comes back to what was famously coined by James Carville, noted Democrat operative. Who it was who advised Bill Clinton on his first. It's the economy, stupid. People will vote on it's the kitchen table issue. What impacts me and my family and my life?
Yeah,
and they instinctively know that under the current administration and the current regime controlling things, and that's not just Democrats, although I think they understand that it's predominantly Democrats, things have gotten harder. Mm-hmm. Maybe not for everyone. Maybe folks, higher income folks have cracked the code. But things are harder out there.
Yeah.
And so maybe to come full circle on this, there's a very steep hill to climb.
Yep.
For the party of President Biden to make the claim that they have got a better plan, because they're the ones that took us into this mess.
Absolutely.
And so that's what we'll be watching. Like I said, I just wanted to begin that conversation, and because I know that we're going to keep hearing this, because they have to have an answer on inflation, and this appears to be at least their first effort on it. So, okay. Well, thanks, John. Thank you, listeners. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to tell your friends. Don't forget to make sure that you are getting all this content, and make sure you get out and vote next week. Whether you've got a hotly contested primary or not, always do whatever you can to exercise your constitutional right to get out and cast a vote. And with all of that, we will see you next time on ITR Live.